Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, the WOTUS rule revised again. This time, will it be a durable definition? Plus, another chance to see Mississippi 4-H making national history with its slingshot championship. In Southern Gardening, with Christmas nearly here, Eddie goes non-traditional. And in our main feature, CRP compliance around the nation. Some states over the limit. How did Mississippi fare? Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Good to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Merry Christmas. We have long reported on WOTUS, Waters of the United States, and all the pitfalls of developing definitions that allow for consistent environmental enforcement while protecting landowner rights. Recently, the EPA developed a proposal they hope will do just that. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
Pointing to 5 decades of confusing and ever-changing definitions, the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers announced on Monday another attempt at clarifying the phrase waters of the United States.
I know that across the country, news of today's proposal is going to be met with a lot of relief and happiness from farmers, ranchers, other landowners, governments that have been looking for a simple, prescriptive definition.
Since 1972, Americans have struggled to understand what Congress meant when it included the term waters of the United States in the Clean Water Act. The definition of that term has been often abused, sometimes stretched beyond recognition over time, and it's left Americans uncertain about whether they were complying with the Clean Water Act or not.
Federal officials say their proposal, which addresses the concept of continuous surface connection, is consistent with a 2023 U.S. Supreme Court decision. The proposal addresses the scope of adjacent wetlands near regulated traditional navigable federal waters. The proposed rule says the water would need to have a continuous surface connection with both surface water, at least during the wet season, and abutting a regulated body of water. EPA officials say they recognize that in some instances, drought or tide flow may need to be considered. Before the new guidance is implemented, federal officials will seek written feedback and hold listening sessions.
I'm hopeful that whatever happens with the body politic over the next 10 years, that this could be a durable rule because it's common sense.
This week, a second look at 4-H history, the nation's first slingshot championship right here in Mississippi at West Point. Something poetic about that. Watch this.
Well, welcome everybody, and good morning. Good morning. So this is something that we've been looking forward to for about a year and a half, I guess now, since we started this new discipline.
And with those words from event coordinator Reed Nevins, history is made. The nation's first 4-H slingshot championship, a new addition to the family of 4-H shooting disciplines. This morning, about 50 competitors in different age categories get started with a short quiz in the interest of safety and clarity on the rules. And then it's off to the nearby woods and a speed course where the shooters are salivating for some real action.
Think about it when you were a kid, you know, you had a lot of fun. I say most kids probably had a slingshot at some point or another. Well, it's just a lot of fun to shoot. But our main thing is with this 4-H program is the safety aspect of it. It's just another tool for us to use to get kids involved, get them outdoors.
And what did some of the 4-Hers think?
I've been involved in lots of shooting sports disciplines with rifles, archery, and it was fun to see this new, different style, especially with the simplicity of it. It's easy to get into, and it was fun to just hop in and do something. It felt more simpler in comparison to other shooting sports disciplines. It was just relaxing.
It was really amazing. I was glad I did it. I wasn't going to do it originally, and then I decided, I was like, why not? You know, it's fun. It just gives me something to do, and it's something new I learned, so it was really good.
It was a little different than I thought it was going to be. I think it went really well, though. The speed course was really fun because we were in the second group to do speed course in the state, so that was really good. And then the woods course, was really fun. I loved how everything was set up.
Pass the word about 4-H slingshot. It is fun, it's affordable, it gets kids outdoors, and you make a lifelong friendships. And it's win, win, win all the way around.
As we near the beginning of a new year, another second look, this one at poultry, Mississippi's top ag commodity by far. Here's a special report.
You might not know it, but Mississippi is one of the largest broiler chicken producers in the country, number 6 in the nation as of 2024, and one of 20 that produce 93% of the national total. In 2023, poultry and eggs generated $3.52 billion. How did that come about? What makes Mississippi so involved with chicken production? We need to go back to the last century to find out. During the early 1900s, the breed of a chicken was more important than its ability to produce eggs. Poultry judges were held in high regard, and exhibitions were commonly held with awards being given to the best of the breed, similar to dog shows today. In the 1920s, crossbreeding began so commercial poultry operations could find chickens who were the best layers. Suffice to say, the old-school breeders were not keen on this trend, and some still feel that way today. However, research has indicated that crossbreeding has helped create the commercial chicken varieties we use today. Throughout the 20s to 40s, it was common for hatcheries to be on or near main streets of towns, and chicks were sold over the counter in small batches, about 10 to 50 chicks. World War II saw the U.S. poultry industry grow. However, this didn't affect Mississippi until the late 40s and early 50s. During this period, more and more poultry companies began purchasing their own breeder flocks. Hatcheries, feed mills, grow-out operations, and processing plants becoming vertically integrated. By the mid-1950s, integrated poultry companies began contracting with farmers to produce eggs and broilers. In general, the contract required the company to provide chickens, feed, and technical knowledge. The farmer provided the land, house, equipment, and labor. The vast majority of Mississippi's broilers and eggs are still produced under this type of arrangement. The Extension Service and the Mississippi Poultry Improvement Association conducted numerous poultry barbecue demonstrations throughout the state to promote chicken consumption. Poultry companies hired men to work with the farmers with whom they had production contracts. These men were called servicemen. Mississippi State University conducted schools to teach the most current technology available. Approximately 150 to 300 poultry workers attended these two-day schools. The industry matured during the 60s and early 70s. Several companies ceased to operate efficiently and were purchased by other companies. The industry consolidated into fewer, larger companies, and that is how it is today.
Okay, so there's always the traditional poinsettia, the color that we've all come to know and love this time of year. But this week in Southern Gardening Extension's Eddie Smith goes non-traditional. Here's Eddie.
Today's Southern Gardening is at the MSU South Mississippi Branch Experiment Station in Poplarville, Mississippi. This year, there are 60 different varieties of red, white, and non-traditionally colored poinsettias growing at the station. Let's look at some of the non-traditionally colored poinsettias.
Orange Glow has bracts, the colorful leaf-like structures that people often mistake for flowers, displaying a striking, warm orange hue with hints of coral or peach, creating a lively, sunlit effect that stands out among holiday decorations. Christmas Beauty Pink Poinsettia is a charming and delicate twist on the traditional holiday plant, featuring soft pastel pink bracts that add a gentle pop of color. Its pink bracts often have subtle colored veining, giving them a layered, almost watercolor-like effect that enhances the plant's visual appeal. The lighter pink hue contrasts gracefully with the poinsettia's dark green foliage, creating a beautiful blend of colors that's perfect for a softer holiday look. One of my favorites, Autumn Leaves, is a beautiful and unconventional variety, known for its warm, earthy tones that invoke the colors of fall. Its bracts range from soft peach to a rich amber, and even hints of apricot, creating a gradient effect reminiscent of autumn foliage. Some bracts may also display subtle hints of pink or coral, adding depth and dimension to the plant's overall appearance.
Look for these and other gorgeous poinsettias at your local garden center this holiday season. I'm Eddie Smith, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a short break, but stick around. Coming up in these days of Doge, are America's counties in line on CRP? Under the program, no more than 25% of the nation's eligible cropland is allowed in CRP. But in a study, 35 USA counties were in violation. One in Georgia had more than 3 times the limit. Millions of dollars are paid out. Is there a pattern? And where does Mississippi stand? CRP compliance, coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Prices headed back up after a slump.
And we'll hear some economists talk about it. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then, Extension economist Brian Mills has some advice for producers. And finally, more market talk, this time about prices and how that's affected the American farmer and rancher. So, markets closed trending up with only one exception. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, lean hogs up over 3 1/4 cents. That's more than a 4% increase from the previous week. The week's only loss, wheat down 1 1/4 cents. That's nearly a 1/4% decrease from the previous week. So harvest finishing up, and it's that time of year to budget for the next. MSU Extension economist Dr. Brian Mills has some advice for the producer looking for bank loans, but first, an update on crop progress. In the 18 highest corn-producing states, harvest nearly complete, 96% as of November 23rd, 1% less than the 4-year average. In the 15 highest cotton-producing states, harvest at 79%, once again 1% lower than the 4-year average. In the 18 highest winter wheat states, looks like the crop's been planted and is beginning to emerge.
For sure, what we need to be talking about is, budgeting and then the financial statements, and making sure that, farmers understand what's going on in their business. And the financial statements do that. I mean, enterprise budget is one form of that, but having your balance sheet, your cash flow, your income statement, all those are going to also help you, right? And they help you in if you're taking it to your bank, you have an idea of here's everything that's going on in my business, and showing them, based off your enterprise budget, right? I'm going to project to make this much money for these crops. This is how it impacts my financial statements, which then shows, how you're impacting those financial ratios, which again is what the bank cares about, right? They want to make sure that your business is staying in business, right? And how, risky or how much in trouble it might be financially. And so being able to show them a plan that goes through your enterprise budget, your financial statements, and how that impacts ratios is going to make you more financially stable in their eyes. And so I think that's really important that producers need to know, is that all these statements, these financial information is important to know.
So prices have been challenging this year for the producer, and this fall is no exception. What are the experts talking about, and what potential issues can we see coming? Analysts Chris Robinson and Ernie Goss give their advice.
We have the herd's too small. You have to have some motivation for ranchers to hold back the mama cows. There's been all kind of talk about were they gonna, there were rumors that they were gonna pay people because you have to rebuild the herd. It's not like when you had the problems with chickens or eggs, it can come back very quickly, or even with hogs, it comes back quickly. So that's the problem. And you talked about prices. We had an all-time high, and now we're back to basically trading $2 fat cattle, which years ago would have been crazy. And we got $3 feeder cattle, which years ago would have been crazy. We went from 380, we had a 10-month rally where we rallied 111 points in feeders. And then in 5 weeks, we lost 75% of that. So, and it all started when the talk was, well, we're gonna bring up cheaper beef from Argentina. And that's all it took, was that. So that emotion drove it more than anything. And this is why commodity trading is so difficult, because there are the facts, there's a side of the herd, there's the supply and demand, and then there's the emotion. And when the exit doors get small, when everybody wants to get out. So we've done a lot of damage. We've basically given back 75 to 80% of the rally that we had in the last year. So we've hit that reset button. The question is this going to be like 2008 to 14, we had record high prices, and then it took 2 years for prices to come back down. So was this the first shot across the bow? We'll have to wait and see, but I think that we're gonna have to watch and see if there are more planned closings. And but definitely, the market feels oversold now, but doesn't mean it can't go lower.
They're going up. That's the real story, as you had it. And we economists and the Fed is caught between that hot and cold as well. And what they need to do, in my judgment, is reduce interest rates by 0.25% on December the 30th. That will bring the prime interest rate down to 6 3/4. Okay, right now, farm equipment sales in these communities out there, the rural communities, not well at all. And that spills over into the broader economy, particularly in Iowa. And that 0.25% it's not going to turn sales around, but it's not going to hurt. It will be helpful, and that's what we need to see. Well, the rural economy is just not strong. We're talking about, again, look at corn prices, look at wheat prices, look at soybean prices. Now, a lot will depend on what happens, unfortunately, at the D.C. level. What about Argentina beef coming in? I mean, there's a heck of a lot of resistance to that, and there is a primary. There are a few years from now, but nonetheless, Iowa's the first on the Republican side anyway. So there are political issues, and we need to see higher prices. But at the same time, you're talking about, say, 20% of overall farmers, according to the bank CEOs, are below break even. They're in negative territory. Now that includes the beef persons, individual farmers, ranchers, and the grain. Grain's much higher underwater.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Harvest almost done. We're already looking at next year. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. There's no question these days that government programs are still a target for fraud and abuse. Conservation Reserve is used to keep environmentally sensitive acreage out of crop production, but just how many acres are enrolled and receiving payments is under the watchful eye of the FSA. Again, Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
The 1985 Farm Bill, which established the modern version of the Conservation Reserve Program, dictated that no county could have more than 25% of its eligible cropland acres enrolled in the program. Later, the Wetland Reserve Program came into existence as another voluntary program designed to protect environmentally sensitive areas. And those acres are to be included when calculating total enrolled.
Part of the concern about this program and some of its predecessor programs in the 30s and the 50s was if you take too many acres out of production, you're really going to hurt rural communities. They're going to lose, the production. They're going to, you're not going to have grain going to the elevator. You're not going to have farmers going in and buying supplies and other things there in town.
It was trying to find a balance, right, of what's a number that we think still meets those environmental goals and encourages those types of uses and programs, but also isn't going to receive pushback from local, rural, urban communities because they're afraid of what it means for their economic resources within the community.
Market to Market filed an open records request to obtain county-level data from the federal government in an effort to ascertain how well the U.S. complies with its rule. Our investigation revealed that for 2019, the sample year, the nation's counties generally succeeded at remaining under the 25% maximum. Only about 1%, or 35 counties nationwide, were in violation that year. Nationwide, that meant 244,000 excess acres were enrolled. If that's multiplied by the $63 per acre national average payment at the time, the estimated total overpaid would have been about $15 million. But experts say the excess spent would have at least had a positive societal benefit, protecting soil and water.
Overall, I don't know that it's a miss, because if the goal is preserving land, it's all of this money is still going to keeping fragile land out of production, protecting it, working towards those issues.
Jonathan Koppas says it's important to remember that the conservation programs, managed by USDA's Farm Service Agency, benefit all Americans indirectly. CRP is a voluntary program where farmers are paid to take land, much of it environmentally sensitive, out of production.
At the end of the day, those $50 million are still putting in conservation practices on the land and doing some good. And so I think there's always a difference there's always an important distinction between some of the payments we do and what we're trying to do with conservation.
A pattern emerged in a few states where several counties were in violation of the rule. Colorado, Texas, Georgia, and Louisiana each had 4 or more counties that exceeded the 25% limit. 11 other states had 1 to 4 counties in violation. We created an interactive map on our website, markettomarket.org, where you can click on each state and see county-level data. 2 examples where counties violated the 25% rule by a long distance were in Camden County, Georgia, where 320% of eligible acres were reported as being enrolled, and Mineral County, Colorado, at 142%. This suggests that ground not considered eligible as cropland was enrolled. A visit to the USDA office that serves Camden County, Georgia, provided little information as to how more than 3 times the eligible acres were enrolled. An official there said he was uncertain as to how it happened. Bailey County, Texas, was reported as having the greatest excess in terms of total acres enrolled beyond the allowed limit. It enrolled 47,393 extra acres, landing at a total of 37%. That means that if the amount paid to landowners was in the lower payment range of $50 per acre, an excess of $2.3 million was spent in just that county. According to USDA, Douglas County, Washington had 43,824 additional acres enrolled in an area where CRP per acre payments were closer to $100. That enrollment of 32% of eligible acres would mean the government spent an excess of about $4.3 million in that county. Zwagerman says it's worth noting that federal policy does allow counties to be granted exemptions to the 25% rule. Neither officials with the individual counties nor the USDA media team mentioned this being the case for these particular counties. The USDA media team did send an email response saying FSA works to comply with federal policy and uses software to help counties remain in compliance. The results, they say, are better as of this year. It said, as of March 2025, only 2 counties slightly exceed the 25% cropland enrollment limitation. FSA is continuing its work to bring counties into compliance. It's unclear whether the same software now used was in place prior to Market to Market's request.
I think it's a fascinating finding, and I mean, you know, being kind of a nerd on this stuff, like I think it's great when it's helping them. It's a feedback loop into how they're operating the program. So if they're making improvements like that, it's running very well to begin with, and they're improving on top of that. I think that's overall a great example, particularly at a time when there's a lot of focus on kind of beating up federal employees and agencies. You know, it's not like we couldn't use a little good news here and there.
In the most recent report, all 82 Mississippi counties were under the limit, most of them quite a bit so. Well, Christmas is right around the corner, and we have a special encore lined up for you.
A while back, I visited the Worthy Christmas Tree Farm in Amory. Now we flash forward with another trip back to the farm.
Before you can decorate it, light it up, or stash presents under it, you've got to find your Christmas tree. Zach heads back to Amory, and just like before, boy, are those beauties worthy.
Go behind the scenes with us where traditions are still being born. That's next time here on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas.